So I've said on this channel many times that I am a KDE fanboy. And as such, I want to know what's going on with KDE 6. So I'm on the mailing list. I'm only going to read the first part of this. This is from Nate and Adventures in Linux and KDE. This week, Plasma 6 underwent some major refactoring to the fundamental Plasma widgets APIs to modernize them and make it harder to introduce errors when developing new widgets. Since almost everything in Plasma is a widget, this necessitates a lot of changes in QA. After a month of work, it's now done. The user-facing side is nil. Ideally, nobody will notice anything. But there are some changes that developers will need to be aware of to port their widgets. Most widgets already needed to be ported anyway due to Qt changes, but hopefully this won't add much else. A porting guide has already been written and can be found here. That's a clicky. This work has been done by Marco Martin, with me providing QA support. On that subject, we got a lot more organized about Plasma 6 this week. We now centrally track statuses on a new wiki page. We'll go to that shortly. It shows the outstanding issues and notable changes. I'm starting to feel like I see light at the end of the tunnel. While I've had to use X11 Plasma 6 session because Wayland is still a bit too unstable for me to feel productive, the X11 session now feels barely buggier than the Plasma 5 X11 session. It's really quite nice at this point. This came up in the comment threads of last week's post, but the more people test and contribute to Plasma 6, the better the final release will be. Neon Unstable now offers Plasma 6 by default. That is awesome, making it a good testing platform for the adventurous, especially if you have heavily customized setup or use exotic hardware. Please try it out, submit bug reports. Make sure to apply the Qt6 keyword to them. So this email goes on a little bit further. However, what struck my interest the most was the new wiki page. So we're going to go to that new wiki page. Plasma 6 is built on top of Qt6 and is tentatively planned to be released in late 2023, early 2024. This page outlines important information, major changes coming in Plasma 6. I'm not going to go over every one of these, but I'm going to go over quite a few of them. Known issues, there's a list of issues. I'm not going to click on it. It's still a massive work in development. So there's going to be a whole host of issues. So we're going to skip that part. Developer facing changes, I'm going to skip that part. Kind of already talked about it. Widgets API has changed. User facing changes. Additions. Basic opt-in HDR support. There is a link for that. The next one is more types of default apps can be chosen. I want to take a closer look at that one. This is written in French, I think. Some of this. That would be Internet Navigator Internet. That'd be web client. You can change that. The next one is email. You can change that. The next one is dialer, and you can change that. It's set to KDE Connect. Image viewer. What it's set to doesn't matter. It's just what you can change for the default launcher. Image viewer, music player, video player, text editor, PDF viewer, folder browser, terminal emulator, archive manager, and map. So those are going to be some of the things that you can now set a default application to. So that is good. Islamic calendar support. I'm going to go ahead and click on that and review that just real quick. Add support for Islamic calendar, astronomical, and apologize because I am not going to pronounce these correctly, but al-Qura. There are different kinds of Islamic calendars, and Qt only supports Islamic civil calendar. This adds support for another two Islamic calendars, the Islamic religious calendar and the Saudi Arabia's al-Quri calendar. Based on observation of the crescent moon, it is thus affected by the position at which the observations are made. So that's cool. And there's some pictures in here of the calendar system. Good stuff. Another addition is conversion between time zones in KRunner. Let's take a closer look at that one. Extend the date time runner to allow for conversion of a given time between two given time zones. So it looks like KRunner will be able to do time zone conversions. You have to set the time and the location, and as far as I know, the location that you set will be, it will show you the difference between your current time zone and the time zone that you're asking it to show you. And you can set a time. So if you want to know what time Brazil time is for you, it'll show you. So that is all they have listed for additions right now. I'm sure there's more to come. Changes the default setting. Thumbnail grid is now the new default task switcher style. Use clicking in the scroll bar track scrolls to the clicked location. So if you have a giant page with a big scroll bar, you can click the scroll bar, empty scroll bar location, and it will scroll to that point instead of just scrolling down another page, another page, another page. I like that. Scrolling on the desktop no longer switches virtual desktops. I like that personally, just because I don't use virtual desktops. I keep it set to the default 2 and I don't change it, but I don't use them either. And sometimes every now and then I accidentally scroll to on a blank desktop screen and it will scroll to the next one. I have to scroll back. Removals. K-hotkeys, which provides the custom shortcuts page and system menu settings, has been removed because it was unmaintained for over 7 years and its core functionality overlapped with the newer, maintained, and better supported K-Global Excel system. Next one, the windowed widgets KRunner has been removed as it was confusing users into thinking that widgets, which are intentionally very small and limited, were apps. Next one, the grid, information, and small icons, text only, and thumbnails, task switchers have been removed as they were worse than the other existing ones. Next one, the force font DPI setting has been removed on Wayland as the per screen scaling system is now considered the only supported method of doing system-wide scaling. Next one, per activity power setting have been removed as they were largely broken, increased code complexity of a fragile part of the system and were mostly possible to approximate using other settings. Next one, the air theme that was previously shipped by default has been removed as it was unmaintained and somewhat broken. So some of the next things is where I'm really interested. What's that work that's been decided but not yet implemented? Make double click the default setting. If you've heard anything about KDE 6 coming, that is one of the changes. Not a big deal. Most distributions that ship KDE set it to a double click anyway, so that's not going to be a big deal. Those of us that change it are used to changing it. Right now, OpenSUSE is the only one that I can think of, and probably Arch, because they do a pretty vanilla system, where those two are probably the only ones I can think of right off the top of my head that keep a single click system. The next one's a big one. The next one I'm happy about, bring SDDM into KDE. So, for some context, back in the day, we used to have KDM as our display manager. That's what you first see and you got to pick your user and then you put your password in and then it starts whatever desktop environment you have set to start. It used to be KDM a long time ago, which was KDE Display Manager. GNOME uses GDM for GNOME Display Manager. Right now, KDE, and for quite a long time now, 2015 or 16, I think, they switched to SDDM because KDM was no longer being maintained. It was buggy, it was bad code, it was broken code, it was unmanageable. So they abandoned it. They went to SDDM. SDDM is not part of KDE at this point. KDE's just using it. The other option was LightDM. The reason they picked SDDM is because it is programmed in C++ and Qt, currently Qt5, but they want to make SDDM part of KDE, kind of like KDM was at one time. So I am going to click on that one. It has been approved. So it's been approved as a plan for KDE project. And it reads, being a non-KDE project necessarily imposes more distance and loses certain opportunities for tighter integration, like the kind that GNOME has with their GDM login manager. It would be of long-term benefit to tighten the integration between SDDM and Plasma to improve the UX in a way that incubation within KDE could achieve. At this point, nearly all SDDM development comes from KDE devs anyway, so it's already sort of de facto incubated in all but name and release schedule on that subject. Being a part of presumably the Plasma release cycle would ensure SDDM gets regular releases, which it is in desperate need of. Obviously, we need to talk to the prior maintainer, Luigi Fiorini, about this. So, SDDM is somewhat not maintained. And the only real maintenance it's getting right now is from KDE developers. So they want to just go ahead and take the reins and make it part of KDE, which I think would be a great idea. KDM was actually really good. You could select, you could set up KDM so that when you're in your KDE session, you could log out and log into, you could tell Grub to log into whatever operating system you wanted to pick during your logout session. You could actually tell KDM to restart in Windows or restart in OpenSUSE or restart in Arch, whatever you had on your computer, whatever was in the Grub menu. And you could hit restart, go make a sandwich, come back, and it's now running whatever operating system you picked as you were logging out. That was really cool. Hopefully they can do something like that with SDDM. So yeah, all right, go back. Make the Wayland session the default one. Now what I'm hearing, for the most part, what I'm hearing is Wayland is going to be the only option at some point for KDE 6. They're not only going to make it the default one, they're going to discontinue support for X, which once Wayland achieves superiority to X in just about every way possible, there is no longer any reason whatsoever to support X. So this I approve of. Make window title bars slightly accent colored by default. I want to see more on that one. If you're listening to this on the podcast, you're not going to see the pictures that I'm looking at, but it's not a big change. But let's see. Linking up on number 74 closed, I would like to propose to turn on the Make Window Title Bars Accent Colored option for our Breeze themes by default. This is not only eye candy, but it also helps accessibility. Compare how much more difficult it is to tell which window has focus with our current gray as opposed to the active window being highlighted in the accent color. So this sounds like it's only for the active window. Title says Make Window Title Bars, but it sounds like they're going to do it for only active windows, which I approve. I like it. Alrighty. And next, use floating panel by default. Let's click on that one. Right now, you do have the option to have your bottom panel be floating. So what this will do is propose the floating panels enabled by default, assuming that they defloat when touching a window, including when a window is maximized, which is implemented. It's already a thing, and will gain shadows and do not expand vertically when they touch a window, both of which should land pretty soon. Quite a bit of discussion in this. There's an image in here of the floating panel not really sitting in the same place as the other one, taking away a little bit of your screen real estate, which it does. But if you're going to maximize your window, then it will go ahead and relocate all the way to the bottom and dock, just like the normal bottom panel that we're used to. So it doesn't take away any screen real estate if you're using your whole screen for a window. So I think that's kind of fine. Next one, consolidate desktop folder layouts. I don't know what that is. We shall click on it. Currently, there are two desktop folder layouts available, folder view and desktop. They could easily be merged without issue. Folder view could have the option to show no location instead of the current choices of desktop folder, files linked to the current activity, places panel, custom location. An option for no location would simply not have any desktop icons and disable the mouse drag selection, completely absorbing the functionality of the desktop layout option. Additionally, it could gain the option to hide desktop icons, which is something a user might want to do. For instance, when creating screen recording, this would probably appear under the icons category as a toggle switch in the context menu under icons. Okay. Okay. So instead of a layout where you pick either desktop or folder view like it is now, you'll have a clicky that says desktop folder, files linked to the current activity, places panel item, or custom location. So it's not a big change. That's fine. Change the release schedule to 2 per year. So it says, I'd like to discuss the Plasma release schedule because it presents a few issues. Number 1, shipping 3 big Plasma releases a year doesn't generally leave enough time for adequate QA and bug fixing before release, contributing to .0 releases being buggy. It interacts awkwardly with the release schedules of several big discrete release distros such as Kubuntu and Fedora, causing them to frequently make distro releases that have a version of Plasma that's 6+ months old and already out of support from the KDE's perspective. It also often causes the last month or two of some Plasma development cycles to coincide with the holiday season and Academy, which isn't ideal because developers' attentions are split. Finally, it stresses the promo team's resources so they often can't spend enough time polishing each individual release announcement. Number 2, our beta periods are quite short and beta isn't updated after its initial release, so beta testers frequently report already fixed issues, wasting everyone's time. Number 3, coming up with 3 new wallpapers a year, 1 per Plasma feature release, has been extremely challenging for DGG. To address these issues, I would like to propose the following changes for Plasma 6. We go down to 2 feature releases per year, and we adjust the schedule to release them in early March and early September. With that extra time, we lengthen each feature release's beta period to 6 weeks and update the beta every week. This proposal has been approved, so Plasma will now have 2 releases instead of 3, and should much better coincide with Kubuntu and Fedora. If you're on a rolling release, then it doesn't matter. Alrighty. Next, remove the concept of icons in Plasma themes. That's interesting. It sounds interesting. This has also been approved. Plasma 6 proposal will deprecate the concept of icons in Plasma theme. Once upon a time, this was implemented so that system tray icons and other icons on the panel could be monochrome. This looked better than putting a jumble of colorful icons on the panel and still looks better today. However, it causes a lot of stubble, edge case issues, and user confusion, because now there are 2 sources of icons and the rules for which source gets used where is unclear and unpredictable. Everything mostly works when using the Breeze icon theme and the Breeze Plasma theme, but anytime you switch one or both of those to a theme that doesn't match with the other, all kind of subtle icon source bugs crop up and your panel looks weird in random seeming ways. I'd like to propose that we deprecate the concept of icons in Plasma themes. Instead, icons would always come from the icon theme for simplicity and comprehensibility. To facilitate the legitimate design goal to have monochrome app and plasmoid icons on the panel and not always monochrome icons elsewhere in the icon theme, we need to sit down and fix Abrocator KDE.org T10413 by implementing the solution discussed here. So, okay, I get it. Sometimes down in that right-hand panel where you have the volume control and the clipboard contents, stuff, the notification bell, those are all monochrome. But then you also have other ones, like right now I have OBS, which is not monochrome, and Steam is, but there are several times that you could have icons down there that are not monochrome, and it just kind of looks jumbled. So they're proposing that any of the icons down there in the panel will only be monochrome. Interesting. I'm not sure, but interesting. Next, remove the ability to configure some icon sizes system-wide. Why only some? I gotta look at that. Okay. People use this setting as a way around using the global scaling slider to make things bigger or smaller, and it's the wrong way to do it. It only scales some icons in some apps, and the proportions of everything else looks wrong. This is a general theme. We need to fix our own bugs rather than offer user configurability that lets people work around the bugs themselves, which generally causes even more bugs in the process. This setting doesn't affect non-Qt apps, almost all of KDE's own Qt Quick apps, and even Random Icons Qt Widgets apps. It's one of those broken promise features that needs to be universal to work, and because universality isn't feasible or even possible, it can't work. Okay, I guess that makes sense. They're just saying they need to fix their own bugs. Yeah, I agree with that. Alrighty. Next one, remove the disable some plasma tooltip setting. It says the general behavior KCM has an option in it to disable tooltips. This option only affects plasma, but it lives in a KCM that is implied to be global in scope, as everything else in the KCM is either global in scope or at least affecting all KDE software, with many affecting KDE and GTK software. This makes the tooltip setting a broken promise option. Many years ago, the promise was slightly less broken because this KCM only contained plasma specific options, even though that was always implicit and never stated before anywhere. Over the years, we added things to it and made it a de facto general global options KCM, making the promise more broken. Okay, basically comes down to fixing your own stuff again. And again, I agree. Next, remove system settings icon view. It says it doesn't support the highlight change settings feature or the quick settings view, both of which were major features that were well received by users. It's unmaintained and slowly bit rotting, like the old tree view was until we removed it. And the very concept of having multiple UI states for a settings app seems like overkill. I think it would be best if we just had one and made it really good. I agree. The way this is described here, yes, spot on. All right. So this is the last one. Remove some redundant and confusing notification settings. Oh yes, I can agree with that before I even click on it. There's too much junk going on in there. Okay. Plasma 6 proposal. This has been approved. Delete the notifications, KCM application progress, and notification badges settings. Okay, maybe this ain't what I thought it was. It says when the user unchecks application progress show in task manager icon backgrounds don't show progress badges on them anymore for apps within a in progress transfers or updates. This setting has few conceivable real use cases and doesn't belong in this KCM anyway. It should be in task manager settings if we want it to continue to exist. When the user unchecks application progress show in notifications, then notifications for file transfers and such stop appearing at all. If the user also unchecks application progress show in task manager, then notifications appear again, but as dialog windows instead. This is not an optimal UX, as it's not all obvious that these settings interact in this way. Yes, I agree, 100%. And allowing the user to remove all indicators of ongoing job progress seems likely to cause more problems than it will solve. Yes, again. Okay, totally on board with this one now that I've read it. Notification badges show in Task Manager should also be a Task Manager setting if it deserves to continue to exist. But I also see no real use case for disabling this setting. Users love these badges, and the most common complaint I see is that not enough apps support them. Okay. Absolutely. I'd agree. Now that I've read it and I understand what it actually means, yeah, I agree. Because you have the little icon showing you progress. By default on my system right now, I have an icon showing me progress, and I also have a pop-up window showing me progress. Don't really need both. I only need one or the other. You know, the system setting, being able to set one or the other would be fine, but removing both of them at the same time could cause problems because it's doing something in the background that you don't realize it's doing. So you should only be able to remove one or the other. I agree with that. And also, it should be in a task manager setting because it's a task manager thing. Alrighty, so that is all on this Plasma 6 wiki. I will post this Plasma 6 wiki in the show notes, in the description, and you can look at it yourself. You can look at some of the stuff I didn't go over in great detail. But, you know, right now it sounds like Plasma 6. It sounds like they're going above and beyond to make sure that it's not the same mess that 3.5 to 4 was. And some of those developers were part of that, either as developers or just users even. But some of those developers remember the mess that was 3.5 to 4. They don't want that to happen again. We don't want that to happen again. Because even I went to GNOME at that point because KDE 4 started out a mess. But anyway, that is all for right now. Great stuff coming with Plasma 6. I will keep my eye on Plasma 6. I will let you know when another big update drops. But anyway, as always, until next time, thanks for watching.